Cecil Stedman, director of the Global Defense Agency. He says he wants to help, so we'll let him help.
Protection from me?
You see things one way, and you won't make room for any other viewpoint. You threaten people who disagree with you.
Do two rights make a wrong? Do two wrongs make a right? What justifies justice? What justifies morality? Who is in the right? Who controls the narrative? When you decide to take actions into your own hand, who is judge, jury, executioner? Whose side should you trust? Because that's what the latest season of Invincible has taught us. If anything, there right and wrong, there is none. There's only directive. There is only the gray, the in between. What is justice? What is morality? So with the latest season of Invincible, season 3, which has been fantastic, by the way. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. I've made plenty of videos covering Invincible, first season, second season. I really love that series. But I kind of want to just talk about the morality of Invincible. Can't tell by title, can't tell by a thumbnail, whatever I decided to name it. But I'm pretty sure by this point most of you guys have actually seen the latest season of Invincible, or you don't care too much. Anyways, spoilers be bound. But I really just want to get into this topic of Invincible throughout like the first 3 seasons. We're a few episodes into the third season, and we've already seen the conflict between Cecil Stedman and Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, and how Oliver, Mark's brother, is slowly tipping the line of Mark becoming more and more just like Omni-Man, more and more like Cecil. And what's interesting about this season is the fact that we got to see the background of Cecil Stedman. Yeah, people compare him to the Nick Fury of this universe, to having his morality or his like precautionary measures, his contingencies be similar to how Batman always has contingencies for everything. But it's okay when Batman does it because he's Batman, but when Cecil does it, apparently it's super wrong. And I've seen this debate in the past few days about, oh, Cecil's right, no, Mark's right. But my thing is, what happens when you go too far? And when too far is not too far? What justifies the extremes? What justifies doing the things that you have to do in the name of for the greater good? Why do we do the things that we do? And in the background of Cecil Stedman, we got to see his origin and how originally he had this mindset of, okay, so if a bad guy does something bad, throw him in prison or kill him. You can't reform them because that's not what they are. And in this backstory, we get to see how he got scarred, how these villains he was trying to lock up, they killed a decent amount of people, and he ends up recovering. And when he finds out they are actually alive and they're working for the government, for the Global Defense Agency, he straight up just murks them and says, I don't work with bad guys, I don't work with evil people, that's not how I do things. And he's thrown into prison. While he's in prison, it's actually shown that he becomes ultimately the top dog of the prison, and the GDA ultimately decides, hey, since you're doing such a good job here, we want to make you the new defense minister or the new head of the GDA because you're doing such a fantastic job running things. And the way he was in prison, he started to work with the inmates, and he started to slowly see Director Radcliffe's objective, how some people can be useful. You can always reform people, no matter how bad or heinous things they've done. You can always reform them, because at the end of the day, prison is about rehabilitation. Here in the United States, most of the time we tend to just throw people in the cage, throw the key away, and just leave it at that. At other countries, most countries tend to reform their prisoners, or at least attempt to. I'm not too sure about most other countries, specifically like El Salvador. They do lock their highly dangerous criminals that they're not able to reform. But essentially, prison is all about reforming, be a better person. But most of the time, we tend to view things as like, oh, people do bad things, throw the key away, lock them away. But if you see someone who has potential for greater good, who just needs that innate ability to be pushed, what do? Do you throw that wasteful potential, let them rot in prison? or do you use that to your advantage until they're no longer useful for the greater good? This is what ultimately happens with Cecil Stedman over the years, and when he encounters Omni-Man, he straight up knows, yeah, I don't know this guy. I know he's potentially evil. We don't know his directives. We don't know his motives, but we have no other choice. You guys may not like me, but this is for the greater good. He starts to see things in the way director Radcliffe originally saw things. People are a tool. People are expendable to an extent. You can use them to your advantage. And Mark, at this point in the story, he's already been through so much. He's seen his father murder countless thousands of people for the quote-unquote greater good of Viltrum, while Mark has done some questionable things as well, such as Merc Angstrom Levi for threatening his family and he's kind of a hypocrite. He kind of reminds me of Suzaku from Code Geass. If you've never seen that show, I'll summarize his character in one bit. He's a hypocrite. He tries to change the system from within without killing, by following the rules, there is always good in people. Do not kill. That is pretty much Suzaku's character in like the first season of Code Geass. He's such a frustrating character. He annoys me so much. This is kind of how Mark is towards the beginning of the season. He still views that there's only good and there's bad. There is no in between. If someone does something bad, lock them up or kill them, because there's no way you can reform them. Even in the episode when Oliver straight up murks the Mauler twins, spoilers by the way, but he sees a little bit of Omni-Man within them when he says, what if Dad was right? Obviously in the show, Mark doesn't answer that, but in the comic, it actually leaves us off on a cliffhanger where Mark says, sometimes, they cut this off from the show entirely just to show Mark's more human element of the show, which differentiates how he's still human. He's not trying to be a Viltrumite. He's not trying to be bad guy. He's not trying to be someone evil. He's not trying to cross the line, because in his own words, all life is precious. No matter how bad someone is, you don't just kill them, because every life is precious. Even bad guys, even the good guys, even the people you say are normal. Oliver doesn't see it that way. He's an alien. He's an outsider. From his perspective, if the bad guys are doing bad things, the only way to get rid of them is to just like murk them. Just get rid of them. Get rid of them. That way you don't. They don't come back and do other things. In comic book media specifically, we have characters whose motivations are, if you kill the bad guy, there's no reason there would be any more. They're just gone, and there's not going to be any. That's Punisher's ideology, that's Red Hood's ideology, but Batman's ideology is, if you kill all the killers, there is still one killer at the end of the day, and that is you. You can't just kill everyone, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be a murderer. And Mark, in this position of the story, he does not want to cross that line, because he still believes in the human morality, that there is simply good and there is simply bad. There is no in between. Now, whether you want to argue Mark is right, Mark is wrong, that's a different point entirely, but I do believe there is a middle. Cecil is correct to an extent that, yeah, you can reform people. Sure, Darkwing killed people. Sure, what's his name, that scientist abducted people. Sure, he dismembered them and did things, but at the end of the day, you are going to let that potential go to waste, rot in prison, when you can use that genius to benefit others, to benefit the planet. Yeah, he's going things to the extreme. He never meant to hurt Mark, but at the same time, you gotta view things from his perspective. If you see some crazy alien who has the power to wipe out the entire planet in the blink of an eye, what makes you think his son won't do it? So the morality comes down to whether, do I want to trust my friend, or do I want to trust society? Do I want to protect the greater good, or do I want to protect those close to me? Ultimately, Cecil chooses the greater good. Yeah, he does heinous things. He does some shady things. Yeah, just because he's the government, he does shady things. But at the end of the day, the greater good sometimes is not justified. Mark still has that childish notion of there is good. There is good in everyone. Bad guys are bad. But the point of this video is morality is kind of subjective, because you can either side with someone, go to the extremes, or you can do absolutely nothing and let these criminals keep doing what they're doing. Even this conversation is actually something that's happened in real life. Like, a lot of people actually discuss this, where criminals, if they're bad, we should just kill them. But other people on the other aisle argue we shouldn't. We can always reform these people. Yes, because they've done bad things doesn't mean they don't have the potential to do greater things. And the morality in Invincible is there is no black and white. There's always an in between. Just like with Omni-Man. Should Omni-Man spend the rest of his life in prison? Should he be killed for killing all those people in Chicago when he ultimately stepped up his game and protected Thraxa? He saved Mark from the other Viltrumites. Should he be in prison? Should Mark be in prison for ultimately murking Angstrom Levi? In his own words, if you do something bad, you should be locked up. So with that logic, Mark should be in prison. Oliver should be in prison for killing the Mahler twins, even though we know he did it because he wanted to. He wanted to get rid of the bad guys. And Mark, that kind of horrifies him because he's slowly coming to the realization that, I don't want to admit it, Cecil might be right. There's just some things you can't change. So I really do like this season of Invincible, how it shows the morality. It shows how far is too far, and not going too far can sometimes lead to disastrous consequences, which is why I really enjoy this season. I really like the first 3 episodes, how we see the conflict within Mark dissolve and just turn away. Now, potential spoilers, skip away towards the very end, but spoilers, when Dinosaurs ultimately comes to the show, we're going to see Mark become the ultimate hypocrite, because Dinosaurs is one of those characters, he's kind of like Lelouch, where he goes to the extremes for the greater good. Not the way Cecil does things, but he does absolutely heinous things by destroying all of Las Vegas, by wiping out entire cities, by destroying the entire planet, or even like End of Story Robot, where he goes to the very extremes. We're going to see Mark's morality and every other character in the show go to the very lengths, be pushed to the very brink on what it means to be a good person, what it means to have good morality. Also, and the spoilers. But yeah, that being said, that's just pretty much black and white. In Invincible, it's kind of a gray area. You either agree or disagree. In the words of Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. Anyways, that being said, what's your guys' thought on the latest season of Invincible? I really liked it. I'm super excited for the rest of the episodes. So yeah, I'll catch you on my next one.